So I was going to start today by asking all of you if you could remember what you were doing 50 years ago yesterday. But I think I should ask, what was everyone else doing yesterday? I hope it's not me. But do you remember? Now, some of us don't remember. Yes, we have some lucky people who may still be here 50 years from now. Like, I see two of them maybe in the room. And can you imagine, a third just entered the door. I'm trying to imagine what it will be like. Will we be upbeat? Will we be down? 50 years ago, I was living in Washington, D.C., except I had gone to Montana, and I was in Missoula at a really hot rodeo, wondering why I wasn't in Washington, D.C., which was probably about as hot as it was yesterday, 50 years later. What do you remember from 50 years ago yesterday? You remember? Sure, shout it out. Fireworks. There were
Fireworks in Las Vegas downtown.
Las Vegas downtown fireworks. Were they good? Oh, with 4 kids. Yeah. Yeah.
I was in Gainesville, Florida with my family, and we were going to visit my grandparents.
Greensville, Florida, with your family, about to
Holiday Inn.
at a motel Holiday Inn, about to visit your grandparents. Kim.
I was in Detroit. I was 16 years old, and in Detroit, Windsor and Detroit always held the Freedom Festival because Canada has an Independence Day
On the first. Yeah.
And so it was a huge, huge display of fireworks on the Detroit River.
Oh, wow. Detroit River for Canada Day and our 200th bicentennial. Yes.
Okay, so I was on the California coast, Monterey Peninsula, Pacific Grove. Summertime, it's hot inland and it's foggy in Pacific Grove. They have the Lovers of Jesus Park where they have all this. But the thing is, when you have fireworks that go up into the fog, all you see is a slight glow.
Oh.
But everybody pretends it's wonderful.
California coastal fog with muted fireworks. Pat, yes. Pascual.
I was in a hospital with a kidney stone.
That's right.
I got the doctor to sign me out, so I went home and I watched the sailing ships on TV in New York Harbor, and I opened a bottle of champagne and worked on that. My 200-year-old clock and got to listen to it tick-tock.
So you had a clock that was a bicentennial clock. You got released from the hospital with a kidney stone. You went home and watched the ships, the tall ships, right, in New York Harbor, but on TV. And you opened a bottle of champagne. When he told us all this on Wondering Wednesday, see what you're missing? I asked him if that was okay with a kidney stone, but we didn't have an answer. Yes, Kirk.
I listened to a thoroughly patriotic sermon at Trinity Baptist Church, wherein the guest minister both extolled the virtues of the United States and also thoroughly criticized our recently concluded adventure in Vietnam.
Oh, really? So was he,
He was a seminary professor.
so he was actually against having been in Vietnam as a Baptist but seminary professor who, yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, how interesting. He was at Trinity Baptist Church, but he was nuanced. And yeah, I believe that can happen. Yes, what do you want to say?
I wanted to get it to the
Okay, I'm
microphone.
still finished. Oh, do you want to speak about this?
Yes,
Okay, then do.
I was TDY in California, and at whatever town it was I was in, they had a program where people would paint the fire hydrants in patriotic themes. There were little soldiers and little red, white, and blue fire hydrants. I don't remember anything else about that 200th anniversary, but the fire hydrants were cute.
I remember, because I lived in the Soviet Union when I was small, I didn't like propaganda, even as a small child. But I got into the bicentennial symbols and fire hydrants, and I remember wearing a bonnet and singing in different musicals we did at school and different plays. I really got into that, the idea of going across the country in a covered wagon. I don't know why we did that. But this time I just haven't felt that same spirit. Yeah, and I feel badly. Yes.
I felt pride.
Then. You felt pride then. Yes.
And now it's just not so easy.
It's harder to feel pride now.
Harder to celebrate democracy when it's being, squashed.
Maltreated.
Yeah. Harder to celebrate democracy. Yes, Georgia.
Well, I was in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and for the first time, the USS Constitution that was housed moored in Boston made a sailing trip from Boston out over to Marblehead Harbor. It was a huge event. Most of the live people, and they have all kinds of stuff going on, and it was a big deal.
So the USS Constitution went out to Marblehead, and you had a big day. To Fort Sewell. Very cool. Ah, yes, Roland. Ah. Oh, fantastic fireworks at the St. Louis Arch. Oh. I don't think so. And Roland claims he was only 10 years old, because I was older then. Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Now you finish. Okay. Welcome. Good morning. I'm Julia Jones. I'm your facilitator for today's service. And now we will finally get around to performing our usual ritual of turning off or silencing our cell phones and turning our attention from our everyday chores to our hour together. Now, where's that button? There. All done. Now, if you have an announcement that you haven't already given me a paper about, you can fill out a paper back there on the table, and it will be magically transported up here so that I can read it later on. We want to welcome everyone who's here, and also the people who are there behind that little red light. And we will, if we can, we will rise, and if not, we'll just turn and wave to our friends on Zoom. Hi, Zoomies. And if you're new here, you know that you can talk to any one of us and ask how to get involved in our many activities, especially the eating ones, and how to get in the list for our Friday newsletter, which is really a very welcoming part of our congregation. And this is the first Sunday of the month, so we got to acknowledge everyone who was born in July. Anyone then? Are you a Leo or a Cancer? Bruce, are you Leo or Cancer? Leo? We got
Leo's rock.
Leo? Anyone else?
Let's sing to him.
Oh. Leo?
Oh, Leo. And we have a Cancer, huh?
What? Two.
Who's the Cancer? What's your day? Ah. And
Okay.
Roland, did you put up your hand? No, you were pointing. Huh? 14th?
A lot.
Field day, yeah.
We have a lot of birthdays in July.
Let's sing to him. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Hey, dear Cancers and Leos. Happy birthday to you. We have an announcement from the back. Yeah, Georgia?
It's not my birthday, but
100,
Gwen Boucher will be 100. What day?
the 16th.
The 16th. An extra applause for Gwen.
So we have another week.
Okay. All right, we are now arrived at the announcements. Free Thinkers will meet today at 1. And then coming up on Tuesday, there will be meditation at 11. Tina's office hours will be at the usual time, Tuesday, July 6th. It will be July 6th already.
7. Sorry, I don't know.
Oh, it says 6th right here. It's written in black and white.
Tuesday. Don't come tomorrow.
Well, Tuesday. You can remember Tuesday from 12:30 to 2:30. Please set up an appointment ahead of time so you won't have to wait. It says here until the Sunday Services Committee meeting starting at noon is over. Good luck to that one. Because the monthly Sunday Services Committee meeting will take place this Tuesday, also on the 7th of July, I suppose, at noon. Please come if you have an interest in shaping future worship themes, music, etc. That concludes Tuesday. Yes, Django.
Tina, are we having a new members class today?
Yes, it should
Yes,
have been in the
it's in the next paragraph. I was just getting to it. Sorry, I didn't have them in chronological order. After worship today, we invite you to 3 things. One is a meeting that Django is talking about back here in the sanctuary about what it means to be Unitarian Universalist and the history of the church, in case you want to learn more or want to become a member. If you want to join, you may sign the book during worship on July 19th. Also today, we have birthday cake in the community room. I was looking them over. They look pretty good. And there are sheets of paper posted around the room on which you can make suggestions. The worship themes for the next 6 months are posted, and you can make any suggestions you want as to music, reading, topic suggestions, cartoons, jokes. We could use some help in the jokes line. Okay, and I have one announcement. On Friday, it says July 10th here, but after our previous problems, I'm not sure what day is what, but it will be on Friday at 11 a.m. The ladies will meet at the Country House. Remember, Friday. You can always find Friday at the Country House restaurant. We will talk, we will eat, we will have fun, we will have more chatting, eating, and it says just a plain old good time. No, it says good old time. Anyway, remember that if you qualify. Any last minute announcements? No. On to the next item, the Covenant of Right Relations.
You want to read it?
Once each month, usually on the first Sunday, we read together our Covenant of Right Relations. Several years ago, we worked out a covenant of how we wanted to act well with each other, and we want to remember and reconnect with it, recommit to it each month. This is not exactly a creed that we believe in, but it is a decision to act well in community. If you feel comfortable with reading these guidelines out loud, please do so. If not, you can just sit and listen and absorb the good ideas. Right? We, the congregation of Sky Island Unitarian Universalist Church, Covenant 2, treat all beings with compassion and kindness, listen actively and speak responsibly, seek understanding and be open to change, acknowledge our imperfections and our differences with good humor, devote our energies to creating and maintaining a vibrant, beloved community among ourselves and in the greater world. Our chalice lighting comes from a brief extract called Persist in Faith by Pat Urabelicki. We face a challenge to democracy, a challenge that calls us to hope in moments of despair. a challenge that asks us to persist in the faith that we can and must make a difference. May our flaming chalice recommit us to truth in our words and in our actions, that we may live as we believe people should live. The story for today is unusual in two respects. One is that it was written by our very own Reverend Tina Squire, a new author. And the second is that I get to impersonate a piece of paper.
Sorry.
I haven't done that one before. That's like that. Okay, what's... if I were only that thin, right? Okay, we're going to be mentioning the slides so that I can keep in sync with the audiovisual team. She says they know. Do you think we trust that?
Yeah.
Slide 13. I remember that tall, thin, red-haired man in the rumpled shirt who raced and wrote again with surprisingly nimble, large hands to script me into being. 4 other men breathed all over me and made suggestions to him. A little round, balding one with fierce blue eyes hopped up and down and said, "Thomas, this is good, so good. I'm going to write to Abigail and tell her we voted to declare our independence from the British King on July 2, 1776. I should do this in a New England accent, but I can't do that. Oh, that day, you know this is Benjamin Franklin, don't you? With the little eyeglasses? It's got to be.
John Adams.
It's John Adams. Oh, okay. John Adams, sorry. Who was Benjamin Franklin married to?
No one.
Oh.
I don't think, not by then anyway.
Anyway, that day will be celebrated for all time to come. It ought to be commemorated as the Day of Deliverance with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore. The Continental Congress decided it needed to explain the July 2nd vote to the country, especially soldiers who were risking so much for their new land. On July 4th, the printer John Dunlap printed 200 copies to take far and wide. You can see this version was carried and folded and unfolded multiple times, carried to campfires and shoved back into saddlebags. People saw July 4, so it became the holiday. Only 26 of that original 200 are still around today. This version has only 2 signatures, the President and Secretary of the Continental Congress. I am special, though. I had all 56 signers' signatures by August 2nd, 1776. I am the engrossed parchment form with all the signatures. One day in 1812, a breathless young man ran into the room where I was on a wall. "Halt! Who goes there?" a man called from another room. "It is I, Stephen Pleasantson, a State Department clerk, not British subject nor soldier, come to take away precious documents." The other man shouted, "I am Secretary of War Armstrong. I do not believe the British are serious in their intentions of coming to Washington." "Sir, we are under a different belief. Let their intentions be what they might. It is the part of prudence to preserve the valuable papers of the revolutionary government." Pleasanton ran around the room, puffing, rifling through boxes and crates to put the parchment and paper in linen sacks. But he ignored me. I wriggled, and when he looked up, he was annoyed that I was at an angle. Then he stopped, looked at me sideways, and exclaimed, "What's that hanging on the wall?" Luckily, he put me in a bag and placed me in one of many wagons he drove to a safe house in Leesburg, Virginia, 35 miles to the west. The White House burned, but I didn't. Stephen ended up in charge of lighthouses. No wonder he looks so scary. The son of the little hopping man with blue eyes who helped write me worked as the Secretary of State and worried I might disintegrate. Not if I'm on parchment. Parchment lasts a long time, but that's all right. People worry. He had William Stone create an exact copy of me. It took Stone 2 years to take a copper sheet and engrave me on top of it so he could make another 200 copies. Years later, John Quincy Adams was president, and the first one we have a surviving photo for. See how nicely he upgraded with color in a recent version? I did not upgrade at all. Stone took layers of my ink to make his copper copy. Many of my signatures are almost invisible now. In the left corner, I have a big, greasy handprint. Some people want to look through other documents to find fingerprints and figure out who rough-handed me. Didn't wash their hands before, honestly. People are not allowed to touch me now. Phew. But over the years, I have continued to touch them. When other people who wanted to end slavery planned to throw me out because I hadn't stopped it, Frederick Douglass argued to keep me. In 1852, he pushed the country to extend our pursuit of happiness to more people. He gave a speech in which he said, "The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim." When President Abraham Lincoln dedicated a cemetery after the Battle of Gettysburg, he referred to me. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. He spoke about those who would be buried in the cemetery and said, "We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." He encouraged the whole country to remember what I had declared and to keep equality of all people alive. Do you care about me? Do you remember and use any of my words? I have been around 250 years. Do you think I will be both in this parchment copy and in the intent of my sentences shaping democracy for 250 more? And there we have.
Images, yeah.
Do we want to look at those? We now come to the joys and sorrows. Have we got any joys and sorrows? No, we have one. Good.
I got a job and a lease on a beautiful house.
Wow! Deborah says that she got a job and a lease on a beautiful house. So that's enough joy for everybody.
Actually, I have another joy that involves Deborah. We told you that afterwards, around the community room are pieces of paper that have the themes for the first 6 months of the year, the worship themes. We want your reactions. It's going to be hard to write on them because Deborah did such a pretty job putting up the words. So you'll see that. Thank you.
And now I get to add the stones.
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Oklahoma. Maple State. Arizona. Alabama. Alaska.
DC and Puerto Rico.
Arkansas. DC.
Connecticut,
Connecticut.
Delaware,
Hawaii.
Maine.
Delaware. Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Minnesota.
we skipped
Texas.
Illinois, Iowa, Ohio,
Idaho.
Indiana,
Idaho.
all those flyover states,
Indiana.
Kansas, Nebraska.
North Dakota and South
South
Dakota,
Dakota.
only one in Montana, and
Minnesota, you did
we're
say.
overflowing with joys of all the states. Okay.
When I was in seminary, my Unitarian Universalist friends would talk about getting to choose, claim, argue for their sacred texts. They could decide what was most important to them, what nourished them, what they wanted to use in worship. I, being United Church of Christ, aka Unitarians considering Christ, still had the Bible as the only thing I could call sacred, right? But for the past 8 years, it's been really fun enjoying all the different sacred texts. I know that for many of us, the writing of Thich Nhat Hanh is important. Some of us love Mary Oliver and Wendell Berry poems. If you feel like shouting out a sacred text to you, that would be great. Anyone have any sacred texts? The Bhagavad Gita, yeah. Yeah. The United Nations Charter, I agree. Thank you, Richard. Very good, yeah. If only we lived by it. What's interesting to me is despite how divided we are as a country, how gloomy this holiday has been, I think we have one sacred text, maybe a couple more, that we've been talking about today that still matters to so many of us, still inspires so many of us, still pushes so many of us to do differently and better, and we push back. And interestingly, I'll probably put you all to sleep because maybe only I'm interested in this, but it kind of reminds me of studying the sacred text of the Bible. There are studies about what texts we use because the Bible is so ancient, we don't have an original text, right? We don't know which preserved on papyrus, which does tend to last a long time, which is the best for what section, and so we're always examining. Now, with our Declaration of Independence, we have a pretty clear understanding of what the final copy was that Jefferson came up with. We even have drafts with everybody else's handwriting on it, the 4 others who helped him, including John Adams and Benjamin Franklin. But there's something about this actual papyrus that is sacred. It was preserved in 1812. We're not allowed to touch it now as much as we might want to. And of course, all the signatures have faded because trying to preserve it did a number on it instead. So we have something sacred, I think, at the heart of us. And sometimes we wrestle with it the way people wrestle with the Bible. How many times were the 10 Commandments given in the Old Testament? Anyone know? Well, in Exodus, of course, says, that Moses goes up in that mountain and comes down, we think, with two tablets, right? Maybe he tripped and lost a third, I don't know. But there's a book called Deuteronomy, which means second law. And it's right at the end of the 5 books of the Torah. And it's this book where Moses is kind of taking a long time to die, telling them a little more and a little more. Really, it's as they're about to enter the promised land that he is not allowed to enter. But scholars think this was actually put together and written when many centuries later, when people who had been scattered into exile were coming back into the promised land. So before we go back into the promised land, remember these things. Choose life. so your family will prosper for generations to come. The life they were talking about were the commandments, which I don't want to put up on the wall, but not lying, killing, or stealing are kind of helpful to community, right? And so, in a way, that's what's happened with our Declaration of Independence. There are people who have renewed it, argued with it, brought it forward. So when Abraham Lincoln does the Gettysburg Address, he actually refers to it. He doesn't mention the Constitution, he just refers to the Declaration of Independence because he wants to talk about equality. And he wants to reaffirm this as they're re-entering kind of a promised land, looking forward to the end of a war. He wants to reset the stage for all of us to reclaim that we are people where all people are created equal. And during debates with Douglas, before he was elected president, Douglas said, and people around him said, all men means white landowners. And Lincoln pushed back. No, it doesn't. He had seen, as a young man in Illinois, he'd been sent off and seen slave trade. And he was deeply affected by that. So he wanted to remind us, to reinvigorate us with what we need to know about the Declaration of Independence. Frederick Douglass, of course, says, well, what is your 4th of July to me or to us, to those who are still enslaved? And he emphasizes, again, the pursuit of liberty, the pursuit of happiness, justice for all people in this country. And sometimes I think it still needs to be said. When I lived or soon after living in the Soviet Union, dissidents took a sacred text of the Soviet era, which was this very liberal constitution, and tried to hold the country to it. Eventually, they wrote a new constitution that wasn't that free or freeing. But that's another thing. That's what Douglass is doing, Frederick Douglass, by taking this special document and saying, we need to live up to all of it. All of us are free. And of course, it was very aspirational when it was written. Here it's written mostly by Thomas Jefferson, who himself owned slaves, right? Who could write these words and not feel any irony, or maybe a little, we don't know. What's really interesting is in 1826, and I think most of you know the lovely story of how he was writing again with John Adams. They were kind of friends again. And on July 4th, he was very sick, and he died. And a little while later, he was 83, and John Adams, who was 90, announced, Jefferson survives, and then died. Unfortunately, he wasn't accurate, but close enough, right? Jefferson had died only hours before, which is really interesting to me because Jefferson, among the very few signers who were still alive, was asked to come and speak in Washington, D.C. about the Declaration of Independence on the 50th anniversary. And everyone invited had ill health. Adams said, there's no way I can get there. Some forgot to reply. Most just begged off. Jefferson was in terrible health. He wrote a letter on June 26th and died July 4th. He was 83 and he had issues I won't go into detail about, but they had to do with multiple plumbing problems inside him. And so he was also almost destitute, about to lose Monticello. Everyone thinks the last letter he wrote was to the mayor of Washington. In fact, he may have written a note the next day asking for some more French wine. Very typical. Here he is destitute, but he's still living high on the hog. And so he wrote to the citizens of Washington, D.C. He was honored to have been invited, but he can't really be there. I should indeed, with peculiar delight, have met and exchanged there congratulations personally with a small band, the remnant of that host of worthies who joined with us on that day in the bold and doubtful election we were to make for our country, between submission or the sword, and who enjoyed with the consolatory fact that our fellow citizens, after half a century of experience and prosperity, continue to approve the choice we made. May it be to the world what I believe it will be, to some parts sooner, to others later, but finally to all, the signal of arousing men to burst the chains under which monkish ignorance and superstition had persuaded them to bind themselves, and to assume the blessings and security of self-government. That form which we have substituted restores the free right to the unbounded exercise of reason and freedom of opinion. All eyes are opened or opening to the rights of man. The general spread of the light of science has already laid open to every view the palpable truth that the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs. Pretty amazing that 50 years later, everything they had espoused, he felt, of course, because he was an Enlightenment person who believed in progress, that human beings would just get better and better. They would have reason, they would see the light. But in a lot of ways, this is still important and still part of who we are and what we aspire to for the world. How wonderful that he could write that just before he died, as perhaps his most important last letter. Oh yes, he says that he hopes that the annual return of this day forever refresh our recollections of these rights and an undiminished devotion to them. Unlike Adams, he doesn't say we need to do this on July 2nd and have fireworks, but we need to remember what it all means. Now, I think it's the final slide of the sermon series. Yes. Tom Hartman makes an argument that the idea of this kind of equality didn't come out of Europe. It may have been part of our more tribal ancestors, but very early on we started to have wars, we started to have superpowers, we started to consolidate power. But the peoples of the New World did understand much more equality, much more democracy. It's said that the Iroquois influenced our Constitution. And so that belief in the egalitarian rights of all people was something Adams and Jefferson said they picked up from some philosophers in Europe, but also from the peoples of this land, who were not noble savages, but quite wise. I thought that was a very fitting awareness to have. So as we go forward, I wondered if you wanted to say some things about what you like about the Declaration. Anything? U.S. history buff here. Come on up.
Hello. Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is this is something, I was an unusual kid growing up. I liked to read books while my friends were outside playing. And in fifth grade, I had a teacher at public school, fifth grade in Tucson, Mr. Shanks, who was very fond of history. And I really enjoyed his class because we did actually look at text. If you could imagine fifth graders looking at texts. And my parents were amazed as like, you're reading this stuff? But we did go over the text of like the Gettysburg Address and parts of the Constitution, and we talked about it in class, and he actually gave us extra credit if we were able to memorize the first or second paragraph of the Gettysburg Address. And I got extra credit for memorizing the presidents of the United States, which only went up to 36 at that time. But but yeah, it did have an impact on me because whereas most kids are taught about the greatness of America, we actually went into the text of what the framers wrote in the Constitution and what our founding fathers wrote to look at what they said and to understand the context in which they said it, which really brought those things home for me. And it wasn't just then. We kept going. There's other things that we adopted throughout our history that I considered sacred texts. I mentioned the UN Charter, but there's a speech by FDR about the four freedoms, which is very powerful, because those generations that went through that conflict of the Second World War, they understood what was at stake, and they sacrificed for it. My grandparents told me a lot of stories about that. And I don't want to sound pessimistic here, but I think there's a lot of things that younger generations could learn from those times, because I have a feeling, I feel like they're kind of falling to the wayside about our role in the world and why it's so important. We need to not lose that. We can't let that candle flame go out. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, U.S. History buff, a.k.a. Richard Spencer. My hope is that we are rooted and grounded in this particular text, and I hope we will continue to hold these truths self-evident.
As we extinguish the chalice and end today's worship, let us take with us the spark ignited July 4th, 1776, carried carefully in cupped hands ever since. UU Minister Reverend Lucas Hergert urges us to remember, we are democracy, unruly, unfinished, unrelenting. People of rebellious joy, taking to the streets, underground resilience, resisting complacence, the pleasure of activism organizing into simple hope. We are democracy, people of principles, taking on principalities, witnessing the worth of those called unworthy, justice just now gaining ground, integrity of interdependent existence extending, living democracy in heads, hands, hearts. We know that democracy can die, ossify, brittle byproducts of bygone idealists, plotting politicians pirating votes, corporations cannibalizing our care for the world. Look, it can wither, distend, come to an end. Democracy, today we will love you alive, make you ours, make you thrive, and vote as though our hope is on the line. And Gareth will now play us the postlude.